Compliance corner, here we go. ATF Form 4473 tips. This is what we are seeing out there when we're doing mock inspections for FFLs around the country, and questions that we're getting kind of on the regular throughout the days and weeks in the past. So we just want to call these out. The first thing, we're still expecting revisions to that current 4473 that's out there. We haven't seen anything or heard anything yet. I know that ATF is busy with other things, so we're still keeping an eye out for that. So, still expected, so keep an eye out. Items 21B and 21C. We get this question almost every day. There's no instructions. We know that, you know that. And, unfortunately, you don't know how to direct the customer because you're afraid that you're going to somehow coach them or influence them in their decisions. So here's what we're telling people. For item 21B on the ATF Form 4473, refer the customer to the warning outlined in item 21A. Just say, hey, if you don't understand 21B, just go ahead and re-review 21A, all right? For item 21C, refer them to the transferee buyer certification and specifically that last sentence before they sign and date in items 22 and 23. That will provide them the necessary guidance to get them through those two questions until the ATF comes up with some sort of directions on the form itself. 21N1 and N2, we get a lot of calls about, hey, I got a customer who has marked no in either 21N or N1 or N2. Just go ahead and say it's okay. All right. 21N1 and N2 can be left blank, or if the customer inadvertently marks no, they can leave it alone if they'd like. But obviously, this only refers to U.S. citizens and permanent resident aliens. If they're a non-immigrant alien, a whole different story. So, and if you want to make the customer make the necessary correction, remember it's a single line, strike through, initial and date, and this just tells the ATF that the customer made the necessary correction on the day of the transfer of the firearm, not after, because as you know in the instructions, if you do it after, you got to make corrections on photocopies, all right? Updating 27D, change from delay to proceed. JB, take this one.
Yeah, guys, we're getting a lot of questions now. Just so you guys know, between JC and I, we actually get about 300 questions a month, and we like that. We actually like the fact that you're asking questions to get it right the first time before you make the transfer. But this keeps coming up over and over, especially with the 10-day delay on anyone under 21 years of age. So when you're doing your next or your state background checks and you're checking for verification on a delay, again, this is on a delay. If someone didn't automatically get a proceed on their transfer or background check, mark 27C as a delay, you're going to put the date in there. But then you go in and check that date daily, right? You're going to be checking ENIX or your state system daily for an update to see if they move from delay to proceed or delay to denial, or if they just stay in the open delay state and you transfer after the Brady expiration date. Okay, all those three options are available. But when you're looking at the form, people keep asking us, now what date do I put next to the update in 27D? And 27D, again, must be completed if you have a delay in 27C on the 4473, and you're going to use the status update. That is the date that the that the FBI NICS team or your state research team changed or confirmed the status of that background check from a delay to a proceed or a delay to a denial. This is very, very important. And this is the type of detail that the ATF is going after when they come to inspect you. Remember, as you get better, so will they. You fix all the stupid mistakes they always used to look for, and you're getting better at completing these forms, they're going to look deeper and deeper for violations to hold you accountable for. So you will be listing in 27D on the date line, and make sure you do have a date line next to anything you check there, the status date, not the retrieve date. The retrieve date shows when you last went into the system to pull that record to see it for yourself and maybe to print it. We also recommend printing these reports and keeping them in your buddy file to prove that you had the right determination from your background check service, whether it be NICS or your state, to allow for that transfer to occur. And we're bringing this up, guys, because it's coming up in hearings. JC is having to fight this, and we're having to prep FFLs who have to go to a hearing to talk about this and why they didn't do it right. and the ATF is not accepting the fact that you didn't know. If you say, I didn't know, they're going to say, too bad, you didn't go online, you didn't review the ATF guidelines, and you didn't do your research. So here you go. Hopefully that explains what's the difference between status date and retrieve date, and which ones do I list in box 27D. And I'll take this next one, JC. What type? Yeah, what type is a Shockwave TAC-4 a similar firearm? And type, meaning box 4 on the 4473, or type on your A&D record, your bound book. Type is the definition of the firearm as it's built, and a Shockwave or Remington TAC-14, and there's some others out there, Black Aces, and some others are making a similar type of firearm. And just because it accepts a shotgun shell or shot shell, folks out there are listing them as shotguns. And this is wrong. The TAC-14 and Shockwave are listed as one of the following. It's either a firearm, or it's a pistol grip firearm, or it's an other in terms of type as determined by the ATF. You will not find this explicitly spelled out anywhere in any ATF single document. It's spread across different places available from the ATF, but we're seeing this on many different inspections by different IOIs are coming in and basically violate or writing citable violations for folks that are not listing it correctly, and especially listing as a Shockwave as a shotgun. And as we know, a shotgun must have a shoulder stock attached to it to allow placement against the shoulder. And it's a long gun in that respect, but it is not if it's a Shockwave, a TAC-14, or similar shot shooting shell. Even I said shotgun, but it's not a shotgun. So be careful of that. Got questions, give us a call, and make sure your team understands this. We did an inspection a couple of weeks ago, and our FFL had to go in and change 114 entries in their A&D book because they listed them as shotguns, and they're not.
Yep.
All right.
And keep in mind with those Shockwaves, TAC-14s are the like 21 and up, and have to be in-state residents only. You cannot transfer them to out-of-state residents.
Right.
All right. Speaking of out-of-state residents, licensees, be very aware. A number of states have enacted new laws. You need to use extreme caution when you're transferring long guns to out-of-state residents. Long guns, no handguns, no receivers, no pistol grip firearms, nothing that can fall under the classification of other. All right. Make sure that you are only transferring long guns to out-of-state residents where permitted. And you need to know what that law says in that resident state of the individual you're transferring the firearm to. All right. Make sure that you do not accept out-of-state concealed carry permits as a NICS exemption. It does not apply for out-of-state residents. So if they have an out-of-state concealed carry permit and you're in NICS exempt state, it does not apply to them. Okay. Remember, for you pawnbrokers out there, for pawn redemptions and gunsmithing, out-of-state residents is fine. You can, if an individual brings in a gun, they're, a resident of state X, and you're in Florida or whatever the case may be, and they bring in a firearm for gunsmithing, it's perfectly okay to go ahead and accept that firearm into your gunsmithing A&D record and go ahead and dispose of it back to the original customer. Same holds true with pawn redemptions. Out-of-state residents and pawns does not apply. All right. So just keep that in mind. Tools you can use. We sent out our FFLC Restricted States Quick Reference Guide. Use it to your advantage. But again, if you're not sure, just pick up the phone and call us and get an answer so we can make sure that you're following whatever the rules are pertaining to that resident state as well as your own. All right. Transaction compliance. We're going to go over a few things that we've seen recently as far as our mock inspections, as well as what's going on in the reported violations we're reviewing and building out compliance action plans for FFLs. The one call out that I have here is expiration date of identification, if any. We highlighted if any here, okay? Remember, if a driver's license, there are certain states where certain individuals may not have an expiration date on their license. It may say something to the effect of indefinite. You want to go ahead and notate, if it says indefinite, in that expiration date box. It's an indefinite. Go ahead and put it there. Okay. Remember, expiration dates on the driver's license or ID is the date of expiration up until 11:59 p.m. on that day. So if you have a transaction you're processing today and it says that that license expires today, that does not mean it's expired right now. It expires at 12 o'clock midnight. Okay. It's good until 11:59 p.m. on the date of expiration. So keep that in mind. Remember, you can always notate it in item 32. Just put the state of issuance for the ID or whatever the case may be. So that way, if it ever comes into question 3-5 years down the road, you know what happened. All right. Private party transfers, something we want to touch on because we had a couple FFLs make this mistake. Look, don't acquire the firearm until you receive an actual proceed on that transaction. Okay. You want to make sure that you do not acquire that firearm until you receive the proceed, because if you acquire it and the original owner leaves, guess what? They have to do a 4473 and a background check to reacquire it. One of the FFLs that accidentally acquired the firearm, the customer who was going to purchase the firearm changed their mind at the last minute. And the original owner said, oh, well, all right, I guess I'll take it back. The FFL did a 4473 and a background check, and the original owner came out denied. Now what do? Now you have a firearm that belongs to somebody else, and it's in your possession, and you can't release it to that original owner. So now you got to play a game of, okay, well, I'll offer you X amount of dollars for it or something like that, or allow them to go through the appeal process, and you're sitting on a firearm that you can't do anything with. So military transfers, we're going to cover a few different things here because this has come up a lot. We just had an FFL that had about 35 violations for military transfers. Few things to keep in mind: military members only, not dependents, not children, not the husband, not the wife, only the military member. If it's a spouse or a child, they have to establish residency in the state that they are stationed in. As far as the military member goes, you cannot, I repeat, cannot utilize the military member's driver's license if they are effecting a transaction based on their military orders. All right. They have to be on active duty status. They have to have a valid military ID card, DOD CAC card. Again, you cannot take a photocopy of that. That is illegal, but they have to have a valid military ID card and must present those official PCS orders, and it has to say permanent. Those orders can be electronic or they can be hard copy. That's fine. Just make sure they say permanent change of station. Okay. That military ID is going to be utilized as the identification for their background check. So you're going to want to document that in the appropriate place, on the 4473, and document those military orders on the 4473s as well. If you are not sure of the situation, if the orders don't make sense to you, if you can't find the word permanent on them, go ahead, give us a call. We'll walk you through the process step by step to make sure you get it right and don't get yourselves in trouble. Now, military transfers. Next slide, JB. Here's the rules as far as military transfers are concerned. All right. If the individual lives on base, they will utilize the address of their residence on base in block 10. All right. If they live off base, they will utilize their off base residence address for block 10. They are no longer required to put both their on base and off base addresses in block 10 in those two scenarios. If they live off base, which this should be very rare, and reside in a different state, like the base is right on the state line or whatever the case may be, or they commute back and forth an hour, whatever, you will have to, in that scenario, list both addresses, and that is their permanent duty station address and their residence address. That is the one situation where they have to document both addresses. So in that situation, you want to make sure that it runs right small enough and neat enough that they can fit both of those addresses in that block 10 space. Okay. Those are the three scenarios. Don't get caught up in all the rigmarole around this. Okay. It's very, very simple. Just make sure, if you ask them a question, do you live on base or off base? Boom. You live on base, you use whatever your residence address is on base. They live off base, whatever your address is off base. But always remember the ATF wants to know where that gun is going to be. All right. These are the 3 scenarios. Obviously we're recording this. So when, you want to review this with your teams or whatever, please refer back to the video. And if you need more clarification, please shoot us an email and I can provide this to you in writing as well.
Yeah, and the big one here, the hint is, if they're military, they got a DOD ID with PCS orders. That's it. Never use a state driver's license with PCS orders. Plain and simple.
Yep.
Okay.